your heart just stopped. 1 second it was beating, and now it's not. That fast, that simple. This is second zero. What happens over the next 60 seconds is something science is only now beginning to understand. Perhaps the moment you die is your brain's peak. Let's start at the very beginning. The first thing that happens when your heart stops is nothing. Nothing you can feel as your pressure drops. 5 liters of blood that were circulating through your body just a moment ago are now sitting still. Without a pump, there is no flow. But your brain does not know that yet. For the first 10 seconds, your brain is still running on whatever oxygen remains within your blood. Your neurons are still firing. Your thoughts, whatever they were, are still happening. You are still technically you. But that window is closing fast. Around 10 seconds in, something changes. Your brain, the most oxygen-hungry organ in your body, consuming roughly 20% of your total supply at any moment. The cerebral cortex, the part of your brain responsible for conscious thought, begins to shut down. This is the moment most people lose consciousness entirely. Your eyes stop processing images. Your ears stop registering sound. From the outside, you look gone. But from the inside, something very different might be happening. In 2023, a neuroscientist named Jimo Borjigin at the University of Michigan published a study that changed the way we think about the dying process. Her team monitored the brain activity of 4 comatose patients as they were taken off life support. They expected to see a quiet fade, brain activity slowly winding down like a machine losing power. That's not what they found. In 2 patients, the brain did something no one predicted. It surged. A massive spike of gamma wave activity exploded across the brain. Gamma waves, the same type of brain waves associated with consciousness, heightened awareness, memory retrieval, and even dreaming. And it wasn't random noise. The activity was organized, structured, and appeared to follow a very specific pattern. Concentrated in a region called the temporoparieto-occipital junction, a part of the brain that research has linked to out-of-body experiences and complex visual processing. Borjigin's response to her own findings was blunt. She said the surge was crazy high. Now let's pause here, where science meets the truly unexplainable. For decades, people who have been brought back from clinical death have reported experiences that sound eerily similar to what this brain surge might produce. Bright lights, a sense of floating above their own body, a feeling of peace so deep it defies description. And then there's the life review. You have probably heard the phrase, life flashes before your eyes. Most assume that means highlights like your wedding or the birth of your child. But people who have actually experienced it say that's not how it works at all. It is not the big moments, it is the small ones. Riding your bike as a kid, sitting at a desk checking email on a random Tuesday, a white cat on a staircase you don't remember. A young man who was resuscitated after clinical death described seeing a white cat on a staircase during his life review. He could not place it. After recovering, he described the staircase and the cat to his mother. She told him they lived in that exact building with that specific staircase. They lived in that building with that staircase next to a neighbor who owned a white cat. He was 14 months old when they moved. This raises a question. Are all of our memories still in there? Does the dying brain in its final surge somehow unlock the entire archive? We don't know. But the brainwave data suggests something is happening that goes beyond a simple shutdown. Something much more complex is occurring in those moments. Let's go back to the body, because while your brain may be lighting up, the rest of you is going dark. The physical systems fail. Around 30 seconds after your heart stops, your blood is no longer carrying oxygen anywhere. The flow has ceased, and the internal systems are failing. Your cells, all 37 trillion of them, are starting to notice. The lack of fresh oxygen is beginning to take its toll on their function. They begin switching from aerobic respiration, which requires oxygen, to anaerobic respiration, which does not. This is a desperate backup measure to maintain life. This backup system produces energy, but it also produces lactic acid. And that acid starts to build up fast, creating a toxic environment for cells. Your muscles, no longer receiving instructions from a functioning brain, begin to relax completely. Your jaw drops open, your eyelids stop holding themselves shut. If you were standing, you have already fallen. Your pupils dilate and become fixed. The muscles that control light have gone completely slack and unresponsive. Your eyes, still technically intact, are now just lenses with no one behind them. Or are they? Is there still some consciousness lingering within them? Because here's where it gets strange again. Dr. Sam Parnia, a resuscitation researcher at the New York University, has explored these very deep mysteries. He has spent over 2 decades studying what happens to consciousness during cardiac arrest. His work bridges the gap between medical science and human experience. His AWARE studies, the largest of their kind, have examined hundreds of cardiac arrest patients across 25 hospitals to gather data on the dying process. The findings are hard to dismiss. In 2023, roughly 40% of cardiac arrest survivors reported some perception of consciousness while they were technically clinically dead. About 20% described what researchers now call a recalled experience of death. Structured thoughts, clear memories, and a profound sense of awareness during death. Around 3% reported full visual and auditory awareness. They could see and hear while their hearts were stopped and their brains showed no activity. One of the most consistent reports from people who come back is the feeling that they were not alone during their time of clinical death. They describe seeing a deceased relative, a grandparent, a parent, someone who seems to be there specifically to meet them at the end of life. Some say this person told them it was not their time yet. Others say they were guided somewhere else by these familiar and comforting figures. Whether this is the brain creating a final comforting hallucination or something else entirely is a question that science has not been able to settle. The experience of dying, for many people, is not painful. It is not dark or empty. It is, by most accounts, peaceful and calm. Now let's get back to the body once again. At around 60 seconds, the damage to your cells is becoming serious, but not yet permanent. This is an important distinction because this is the window where resuscitation is still possible. The cells are damaged, but they are not yet dead. If someone starts CPR right now, if a defibrillator delivers a shock, there is still a chance to reverse what has happened to the body. Brain cells can survive without oxygen for roughly 4 to 6 minutes before permanent damage sets in. The clock is ticking toward an irreversible state. At the 1-minute mark, you are in a kind of biological limbo, not alive in any traditional sense, but not gone in an irreversible way. Your body temperature has barely changed. Your skin is just beginning to pale as blood drains from the capillaries near the surface of your body. Inside your cells, enzymes that were safely contained behind membranes are starting to leak out, as those membranes weaken from the acid buildup within them. This is the very beginning of a process called autolysis. What's self-digestion, your own cells beginning to break themselves down. But it has only just begun. At 1 minute, most of your body's cells are still intact, still structurally whole, still waiting. The question is, what are they waiting for? There are 2 answers to that question, and both of them are true. The medical answer is that they are simply waiting for more oxygen. If blood flow is restored within minutes, many cells recover. The process can be reversed. People come back from this every day in hospitals worldwide. But the other answer is harder to explain. If no one comes, no CPR, no intervention, then this was your last minute on this side. Based on brainwave data and survivor accounts, it appears that your brain did not use that minute to shut down quietly. It used it to turn.